Stanley Morgan, your book, Tobin Takes Off, has just been published by Mayflower in paperback. This is the fifth in the series of Russ Tobin novels. What's he up to this time, Russ?
In this one, Russ and his fellow courier and bird fancier pal, Patrick Holmes, are finishing their season as couriers in Mallorca. It's their final night. It's bonfire night, November the 5th. The season is about to die. The birds have gone home, the sun has died, and they're sitting in Dirty Dick's bar, commiserating, reflecting on the season, and contemplating their return to England.
Does he go to England, or...?
Yes, he does. They return after a rather hairy experience during their last evening in Mallorca, in which they get involved with the Spanish police. Return to England. Russ has then to decide what to do in the future. He has already had an offer during the course of the season to go out to Africa to take up a similar job, but this time in the safari fields. And this, in fact, is what he does during the course of the book. He has the appointment with his new boss and decides to go out to Africa.
Is Africa a country you know?
Rather well, yes. I lived for 4 years in Rhodesia, between the years 55 to late 58. Didn't travel too extensively, as money was very short. But what I did see of it, I loved enormously.
Russ Tobin has now been a sewing machine salesman, a debt collector, a TV commercial actor, and a courier. Is he going to stay a courier in Africa?
No. No, already I've finished the sequel to Tobin Takes Off, which is Tobin on Safari, and I'm currently writing on his next adventure, which is Tobin in Paradise, in which he takes off to the Bahamas and gets involved over there with a casino crowd, with the croupiers and the gamblers.
You seem to choose the warm countries.
I do. I love the sun, I love the warmth, I can't stand being cold. And I think that to embrace Russ in an aura of romance, he has to be in an atmosphere of, well, sort of an exotic atmosphere. And this, to me, means the sunshine. One can't relax in a cold climate.
And so yet, he comes from Liverpool.
Indeed he does.
Not noted for its heat, if I may say so.
No.
Stanley Morgan, you've now sold over 1 million copies of your books. How do you account for their success?
You know, I don't honestly think I can account for it. It's been a great surprise and joy to me that the series has taken off as it has. I suppose it's Russ himself. He seems to have been endowed almost accidentally with the sort of a charm that appeals to a wide variety of people, to young and old, and of both sexes.
And yet he's not like the Beatles, is he? Who came from the same place.
Not at all, no. Russ is an ordinary lad. I suppose this could be his appeal. People are able to identify with Russ, with what happens to Russ. His adventures are sufficiently far-fetched to excite their imaginations and their dreams, and yet kept within the bounds of possibility. It could happen to them.
Of course, Russ is very successful in other ways that a lot of men would like to be.
In the boudoir, yes. He's a charmer, and far more the hunted than the hunter. I've tried to draw the character in such a way that the women find him as enjoyable as he finds the opposite sex. His adventures are tongue-in-cheek escapades. He's not a hunter, and at any level and for any duration, doesn't matter whether his affair lasts for 5 hours or 5 minutes or 5 months, it's a happy union between himself and the girl.
You do, however, largely regard sex as a joke, don't you, as you write?
Oh, very much so. Yes, it has to be this way. I cannot stand pornography. I never read pornography. It's abhorrent to me. But there is room in literature for fun sex.
Do you think that your readers have the same attitude?
Yes, I get quite a number of fan letters from all over the world, from Australia, from Canada, and from Africa. And in each of these, the theme seems to be, thank you for the humour. Keep up the humour as well as the sex, but please not straight sex. It is really the most boring thing to read. So,
Your books are really more of a romp, aren't they?
Oh, yes. Yes.
To what degree is Tobin autobiographical?
Rather largely, I would say. In the first instance, I drew very largely from my own life, my own experience in Liverpool. During my formative years in Liverpool, money was rather scarce, as it was for Russ. And one of my biggest problems was finding the job that I really wanted to do. Russ is like this. He needs an aim in life. He needs a target to attain. He doesn't know what he's going to do eventually. And so he's fumbling around from job to job, location to location, looking, waiting for the thing to strike him, for the opportunity to arrive. And this was rather like myself. I began life in the bank in Liverpool, very much against my wishes. It was my family's wish that I go into something substantial. And I died the death. I hated every moment of life in the office. But there was no escape. The only escape I could find was to join another bank, which I did. I joined the Bank of Nova Scotia, and they took me out to Canada. They paid for my passage. This was the only way of escape for me. Russ did very much the same, began life in an office, and was convinced by his girlfriend and his friends that he had the qualities of a successful salesman, and so tried that, and tried hard, but eventually was convinced that this was not for him. So he moved on to debt collecting, and then on to TV commentator and so forth, very much as I have done.
Stanley Morgan, now that you're broadening your canvas with Russ Tobin, you're taking him to South Africa in this book, Kenya, and then to the Bahamas in the next one. Are you going to go further afield? And if so, how are you going to research it?
Oh, indeed, yes. The beauty of a series like this is that I can take him anywhere and put him in any sort of job. I would like to cover the Americas, possibly South America, certainly New York and Miami, and then conceivably on to Australia. This is an area that I haven't visited. I very much wanted to go to Australia all my life, since a boy in Liverpool. And I still would like to see it very much. So quite conceivably, Russ will end up in Australia.
He has certain Australian characteristics, doesn't he?
Yes, he's very much a man. The Australian men are all men. He has a sense of humour that I think appeals to the Australians. That certainly the books sell very well in Australia and New Zealand. He's a hard liver.
So that in any case, whatever your attitudes towards future writing may be, we can be guaranteed a Russ adventure every year.
I would like to think so, yes. As long as the public want them, I'll keep writing them.